We are on day 17 of the shutdown. The record is 35 days. That was broken during the first Trump term. Now he wants to see if he can break his record again. Donald Trump truly bringing the country to new heights. And the blame for the shutdown, irrespective of your position, has in a plurality been laid at the feet of Republicans. Now, Republicans don't think this is fair. They put forward the clean CR. Democrats don't want to vote on the clean CR. Democrats want to vote on an ACA tax credit extension that will go past 1 year, go into multiple years, probably to the end of the Donald Trump administration. And they want to have it done now because they don't want the premium increases that are going to hit tens of millions of Americans to go into effect come January of next year. In fact, some of those price increases, people are already being informed about this month, going into next month. And the lot of time that Mike Johnson keeps talking about, oh, it's December, it's December. December's right around the corner. And when you're talking about like people's health insurance premiums like doubling or more than doubling, you know, you don't really want to cut it close. You'd like to cut it maybe, you know, a mile away and not close. So Republicans say, you know, we made these cuts before. We could talk about this later in the future. But we should just pass a clean CR. This is politics with the shutdown. Democrats say you didn't want to negotiate before. You wouldn't have cut it in the first place if you wanted to keep it. This is the only place we have leverage is the fact that you need 60 votes to pass this. So we're going to keep fighting you on it. We want you to pass this healthcare reform. And since Republicans control the Senate, control the House of Representatives, control the presidency, and arguably, depending on your perspective and how partisan you are, control the Supreme Court as well, most Americans see this as Donald Trump's and the Republican Party's fault. They're the ones who control the levers of power. Why weren't they able to make a deal? They should have negotiated, or they should have made a deal. They control it, or they've been convinced on the healthcare arguments. Now, what makes up what? What percentage is, don't Republicans control everything? Yeah, it's their fault. And what percentage of it is, hey, they should have negotiated properly. That's the fault of them because they didn't negotiate with the Democrats. Or, hey, it's the fault of them because they should have passed the healthcare ACA extensions and I want my healthcare protected. This is an issue that the Democrats poll really well on. It makes sense that they would focus on this. Either way, the pressure has been building. And as federal workers continue to go without pay, and Russ Vought of 2025 fame goes into the firings of federal workers that are unnecessary during a shutdown. You do not need to fire a furlough worker. They are not getting paid during that process. To say they are an active drain is a lie because they're not getting paid. They're furloughed. But they're using the opportunity to engage in these firings. Some would say, should you have given them opportunity? Others would say they were doing it anyway. So that's where we are now. 17 days in, we're about where we were before when it comes to who the people lay the blame with. The only difference is the pressure is building as essential services continue to be restricted. And the administration wants to shift the narrative as it gets worse and worse for Republicans. I don't know if you guys saw this, but they recorded a video. And when I say they, I mean Kristi Noem of DHS recorded a video to be played in airports across the country where she directly blames Democrats in a partisan manner for the shutdown on what will be broadcasted on government airwaves. This is going to be broadcasted in TSA check-in counters and airports across the country. Multiple airports have already refused due to what they believe could be violations of the law, the Hatch Act saying that you cannot use the government to campaign and to push partisan political purposes, as is what they're accusing this of being.
I'm Kristi Noem, the United States Secretary of Homeland Security. It is TSA's top priority to make sure that you have the most pleasant and efficient airport experience as possible while we keep you safe. However, Democrats in Congress refuse to fund the federal government, and because of this, many of our operations are impacted, and most of our TSA employees are working without pay. We will continue to do all that we can to avoid delays that will impact your travel. And our hope is that Democrats will soon recognize the importance of opening the government.
So clearly blames Democrats twice in this 30-second time period. blaming the shutdown on the Democrats, therefore blaming your travel problems on the Democrats. Instead of somebody being at the airport like, God damn, why isn't the government fixing this? They're thinking, oh, why aren't the Democrats fixing it? At least that's the intention. I don't think stuff like this really works all that much. I don't like the appearance that it creates for a government. I think it may have some effect, but I think it also makes the government look very, it gives an image that I think is not becoming. I don't think it is a becoming image. And so all of this together has led to some figures that are reliant on popular support for fundraising and the continuance of their existence in the House of Representatives have decided to distance themselves from the Republican majority on this shutdown, especially on the issue of health care, which is going to affect the poorest in the country first. The poorest, like those and Georgian Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene's district, who went on CNN to talk about how Republicans should compromise with Democrats on health care and that they should extend the ACA subsidies, to show you just how bad the pressure is right now on Republicans in the House.
Start there. Let's start with the shutdown. So you voted for the short-term funding bill, but now you're talking about this health care issue. Help us better understand. Why now?
Well, actually, this is something I talked about when I first ran for Congress in 2020, because I grew up in a construction company family, bought that company after college and retired my parents. And after the ACA was passed,
the Affordable Care Act.
Yes, the Affordable Care Act. Our family's health insurance premium went from $800 a month to $2,400 a month. So I've known about this as a major problem for a long time. It's not just ACA recipients whose premiums are going to skyrocket very soon. It has been a disaster for many Americans across the board. And cost of living is so high now. Many of my constituents, many of my friends, and even my own children are finding health insurance to be extremely unaffordable and something that they are having to go without. So I think this is an incredibly important issue. I think it is a crisis. I don't think it's something to wear political party team jerseys on. I think it's something that we have to address and fix.
And it's very personal for you.
Now, with the word crisis, this is a word that Democrats have been leading into. They call it the Republican health care crisis. Of course, she didn't put Republican in front of it. But by acknowledging that the situation with health care is a crisis, nearly 10 years, a decade after Donald Trump said he would have a plan to fix health care, I mean, that does put the messaging in the Democrats' court for what they've been pushing. And if you try to follow their type of messaging, you can't do better. I could see her fixing her own image in her own district, but you can't beat somebody who runs hard on immigration by trying to run to the right of them on immigration. You're going to lose. You try to get in the mud with a pig, you're going to lose. You try to get in the healthcare squabble right now, the Democrats have been pushing, might be able to help her. Republicans can't readjust at this late stage. They can't. And so it's a question of whether or not they can deal with the heat long enough before Democrats say, like, hey, we can't keep asking these federal employees to keep coming in without pay. Maybe we should just pass a clean CR. But right now, neither side seems willing to budge, even if one side is getting more blame according to polling.
Very personal. It's affected my own life. And the Affordable Care Act was passed in 2010. So we're 15 years down the road, and the industry has changed drastically. Many companies dropped out of the market. We've seen doctors stop having their own practices and become hospital employees. We now have to import doctors because we don't have enough. Healthcare has drastically changed, and I'm one of those that gets real tired of political drama when it's not actually solving a problem. And this is such a crisis that I'm willing to say, okay, everyone, we have to do something about this. It shouldn't be something that we dangle the American people or military pay or all of these things. We shouldn't be dangling them back and forth. We have to fix it.
What are you hearing from your constituents right now? And do you have any regrets about voting for that short-term continuing resolution, that spending bill?
Thank you for that question. Number one, I am a Republican. and I support the president. I was very vocal about I didn't want to vote for a CR. I want to pass our appropriations. That's our constitutional duty, and I want to bring that taxpayer dollars back to my district. I work hard on that, so that was important to me. But I support the president, and I voted for the CR. Number two, what am I hearing from my constituents? It's great. We track all the calls that come into my office. About 60% of the calls coming in right now are calls of support and saying, yes, health insurance is a crisis. They're telling us stories about how they're already paying $2,000 a month with $10,000 deductibles. I'm getting phone calls from people that are saying if the ACA tax credits expire, they aren't going to be able to have health insurance. They're going to have to drop it. But I'm hearing from people on both sides, people already on the ACA and people that are already getting crushed by high health insurance premiums.
And mind you, that money goes back to hospitals, people not willing to, or not being able to pay, not being willing to go to the hospital, not being able to, that trickles down to the entire healthcare system, not just the individual ACA recipients.
Ask you about this new Washington.
At the same time that we have rural hospital shutdowns that both parties acknowledge is another crisis.
Washington Post poll. It shows that 47% of Americans believe that President Trump and the Republicans are mainly responsible.
47%. God damn. 17 points? That's almost, I said plurality multiple times. I was almost a majority. My gosh. Look, there's other polls that have it a little closer, but also those are polls that I was checking out like a week and a half ago before I went to the front. Maybe it has gotten this bad in the meantime. I mean, if you got Marjorie Taylor Greene coming like this on CNN, it ain't hard to imagine that they feel it.
Responsible for the shutdown. You see it here on the screen, compared to just 30% of Americans who blame Democrats. Of course, Republicans are the ones with the power. Do you agree with Americans in that poll that see the shutdown as your party's fault?
You know what? I don't think the shutdown is popular for either side. And so I see the shutdown completely different from maybe my party leadership. And I'm not putting the blame on the president. I'm actually putting the blame on the speaker and Leader Thune in the Senate. This should not.
Oh, damn. So Mike Johnson and Senate Majority Leader Thune. Damn. Calling out specifically her leadership.
Be happening. And I don't think, look, as a member of Congress, we already have a low enough job approval rating. This shutdown is just going to drive everybody's approval rating that much lower.
But so you're putting the blame on the leadership of your party.
Absolutely. We control the House. We control the Senate. We have the White House. I've been vocal saying, you know, you can use the nuclear option in the Senate. This doesn't have to be a shutdown. But what we have to do is we have to work for the American people. And our country is so divided right now. We see it all the time in every single way. It's divided in what I would say very dangerous ways. And we saw that with the recent assassination of Charlie Kirk, which has upset so many people across the board. And look, when it comes to hearing from senior citizens or my own friends and neighbors and my own family members and people that voted for me, and they're just saying, Marjorie, we just really want somebody to do something about health insurance premiums. We really want our government and our leaders to actually focus on our country for a change and fix our problems. That is the message I constantly hear from my district, and I'm a representative. I don't have to be a cheerleader for my party. I have to represent my district because those are the people that hired me and sent me here. And I myself, I agree with them, and I'm pretty much over it's just drama constantly on TV. No offense, because you guys are on television, but that's all that we see in American politics now.
You know, there's a reporting that President Trump, as you know, recently called at least 2 senior Republicans to ask, and I'm quoting now from these reports, what's going on with Marjorie, unquote. Have you talked to the president about this issue? It's obviously so personal for you.
Well, you know, the president has my cell phone number, and he's called me many, many times. So if he wants...
Recently? How recent?
I don't get into that kind of details, but he knows how to call me, and he can ask me himself. But here's the deal. There's also this, and I'm not blaming you guys, but there is a media narrative trying to say that I don't support the president. I absolutely support the president. I campaigned for him for years.
Who is saying that? What's the media narrative that Marjorie... Yet that, guys, I've questioned her loyalty. You know, we've been saying for a while now that Marjorie Taylor Greene is a communist, and her real loyalty is to Chuck Schumer. What do you mean, fucking people have been? Who says that? Is it really that she, like, for a moment forgot to, like, properly hold Donald Trump's ego, and for a moment, like, her foot slipped, and so she's like a secret agent? Is it really that simple? Is the infighting that bad over there? I know the lefties like to concentrate on lefty infighting, but people don't know the righties infight too. And that infighting is mean.
But I'm also an action person, and I want my party to solve problems.
And you say he's not getting good advice, though. You told Manu Raju. What specifically?
Well, I don't think it's good advice that a government shutdown is going to help Republicans in the midterms. I don't agree with that. I also don't think it's good advice that...
She's meandering? Yeah, because she's nervous. She's nervous. She's on a network that she's not friendly with. And she is taking a position that is adversarial not only to House and Senate Republican leadership, but technically to Trump's position, even if she's positioning it as it isn't.
Republicans ignoring the health insurance crisis is going to be good for midterms. I actually think that would be very bad for midterms. And I think that just not staying focused on America First policies is detrimental as well.
Yeah, and on that note, are you concerned about the cost of living?
Very.
That the President Trump said he would lower?
The inflation crushed people in the past 4.5 years, and the costs have not come down. I myself can tell you my apartment here in Washington, D.C., the electricity bill is $100 more than it was last year, because you can look at your own bill and look at costs. Prices have not come down. That is a reality. People's wages have not gone up. That's another reality. And so Americans are continuing to have a very difficult time getting by. And I'll go a step further. I'm a mom. And so when it comes to what is affecting my adult children's lives, who are 22, 26, and 28, I'm going to be 1,000% fighting for them over any politician and any party. And I can tell you right now, that generation, they are barely making it, and they're very hopeless for their future.
So you're a mom first, a politician second.
That's right. I'm a mom first.
That's good to hear.
So I want to just ask you also about another issue you've been really outspoken about, and of course that is the Jeffrey Epstein files, wanting to release those.
Oh man, it goes
Democrats
from one issue to another
been
that Mike Johnson doesn't want to talk about. My God. So is Marjorie Taylor Greene just the excuse to bring up every topic that makes Mike Johnson uncomfortable? By the way, we still have a Democratic congresswoman who got elected 1 month ago, still waiting to be sworn in, with the knowledge that she will make the 18th vote necessary to pass the Jeffrey Epstein discharge petition, so that we will have a vote on the House floor on releasing the files, making a lot of people take a lot of uncomfortable votes.
Calling for that, a few other Republicans as well. The Democrats are accusing Speaker Johnson of delaying the swearing in of Arizona's Democratic Congresswoman-elect because she would give the last vote needed to release those Epstein files. I'm wondering, the Speaker, for his part, he has denied that. He said it's because of the shutdown. Have you spoken to him? Do you think she should be sworn in right away?
Well, I'll say it like this. I can't conclusively say if that's why the House is not in session, but the House should be in session. And the House should be in session for many reasons. We have appropriation bills that need to get passed. There is a new Democrat that's been elected that does deserve to be sworn in. Her district elected her. We have other bills that we need to be passing. And if it's to avoid the discharge petition, why drag this out? That is going to have 218 signatures. And so I say go ahead and do it and get it over with.
Mm-hmm.
The big news that we're all following right now is obviously the ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas and Gaza, and the hostage deal that all the remaining Israeli hostages, dead and alive, will be allowed to go back to Israel. President Trump says he might be going to the region as early as this Friday. He wants to be there when this historic moment unfolds. He wants to witnesses, talk to his aides, talk to the Israelis, talk to the Palestinians as well. Do you have any concerns at all that this deal could still, God forbid, fall apart?
I don't know. I certainly applaud the president. This has been one of the issues
Okay, that's gonna be enough of that. I don't need to hear Marjorie Taylor Greene tell me about the likelihood of success of these negotiations. What I'd much rather hear is Mike Johnson respond to Marjorie Taylor Greene's comments about how the fact that the Republican Party is basically ignoring the healthcare crisis, and listen to him try to clean up and say, "Oh, I'm sure she's just, oh, I like," listen to what he says to not push back against her, while also making sure that he doesn't paint the image that they don't care about healthcare. Because that's the image she left.
Democrats in the Senate voted against advancing the Republican funding bill. Remember, appears that if they
For the 10th
need
time, by the way.
Johnson, Republican,
Here we go.
that he is per, will vote to pass it. Then we can talk about any other issue. Last night, however, Senate Majority Leader John Thune, Republican of South Dakota, told MSNBC that he has privately told Senate Democratic leaders that if they need a commitment to a vote on extending Obamacare subsidies in exchange for their votes to reopen the government, well, he is willing, he said, to make that deal.
Wait, extend how long? Because the word, what I've heard is extend for a year. So extend until after the midterms, and then its future is uncertain. Then it could gone. So right until it's politically useful, and then nope. Why not until the end of the Trump administration? Like, these are the questions the Democrat leaders are going to ask.
I've said if you need a vote, we can guarantee you get a vote by a date certain. At some point, Democrats have to take yes for an answer.
And when they say for a vote, Democrats didn't say we want to vote. Democrats said we wanted to extend ACA subsidies. Because if you just promise to have a vote and then vote them down, well then, why would they just don't care? Why would they care?
And joining us now to discuss the government shutdown and much more, the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, Republican of Louisiana. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Speaker. So you heard your Senate counterpart there offering Senate Democrats a promise of a vote by a date certain on extending the Obamacare subsidies. Are you willing to offer the same in the House of Representatives?
Yes. I mean, we've always been prepared to have a vote on that. It's something that was going to be discussed and debated deliberately throughout October and November, remembering that this is an end-of-the-year issue. The subsidy doesn't expire until December 31st. And as I've also explained, Jake, I mean, we have 535 members in the House and Senate, and there are a myriad number of ideas on reforms that would be necessary to actually have that passed into law and extended. We need all this time to negotiate that. But yes, I mean, that has always been the intention. And Leader Thune and I meet almost every other day, at least, to touch gloves and make sure we're on the same page. He is bending over backwards to offer to Schumer and the Democrats everything possible to get the government opened again, but they've now voted 10 times to keep it shut down, and real harm is being felt by real American people. By the way, that overture by Leader Thune was turned down by Chuck Schumer. He wants a guaranteed outcome of that vote, and that's not something we can deliver today because we haven't had all that deliberation yet.
There's not a lot of trust between Democrats and Republicans on the Hill right now. I want you to listen to what Senator Bernie Sanders said on our CNN town hall last night about talk of health care negotiations. This is what he said.
They've refused to negotiate, and anyone thinks that tomorrow they'll suddenly start negotiating, I think is smoking what is illegal in many states.
It sounds as though Leader Thune is negotiating behind the scenes to assure Democrats the negotiations are real. Are you talking at all to your Democratic counterparts? Are you doing any negotiating?
There have been constant negotiations going on, both inside the individual parties and across the chambers and across the aisle.
But if the negotiations, all it leads to is an agreement to have a vote at a later date to restore the funding that they already cut earlier this year, well, then why should we believe it will end with any vote outside of the same result as last year? I mean, them holding out until they have a guaranteed, yes, we want to see the ACA get extended, which is the position of 70, the polling I saw said 77% of Americans. So it's overwhelmingly popular. I mean, it makes sense that they would hold out. If you're going to make the jump in the first place, why wouldn't they hold out? Especially if the other outcome could just be you guys agreeing to have a vote and then just shooting it down. Why would the vote be any different than the margin for the big, beautiful bill?
I don't know what Bernie Sanders is talking about. So much of what he said, or what I've heard he said at his town hall last night, is incorrect, inaccurate. I think he knows that. He's been around here a long time. But look, this has, as I mentioned, the Obamacare subsidy was...
Like, as long as, if it was a promise for a vote for 3 years of ACA until the end of the Trump administration, maybe you could make an argument, especially if combined with an aggressive campaign to see if you can get the vote. I don't know. But I don't think it's going to be any more leverage than what you have already currently.
It's an issue that was always going to have to be...
And, I mean, even to get there, again, that's not where we're at. So what I'm hearing is an extension by 1 year.
Resolved by way of consensus and thoughtful deliberation and discussion. There has been a lot of that on this subject. There is currently, and there will be going forward. That has nothing to do with the short-term stopgap funding measure of the continuing resolution. Bernie Sanders knows that. Chuck Schumer knows that. Everybody knows that. This is not a health care fight. This is a fight about keeping the lights on. This is a short-term funding fight. 7 weeks, simple measure to allow us to continue all this work. And ironically, they are the ones that are trying to stop that.
Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia has broken with your party, saying she's disgusted that these Obamacare subsidies are going to expire and that health insurance premiums could double. She says that Republican leaders have not given a plan to help the millions of Americans to deal with this. Do you have a plan?
Marjorie's frustrated because we're all frustrated. I had a thoughtful conversation with her on the phone right after she said that. I think the next evening. She's a friend and a colleague, and I explained to her all the deliberation and all the discussion that's been going on. Marjorie doesn't serve on the committees of jurisdiction where that's their specialty and their main area of interest. And I invited her to join the conversation and come into the room when all those deliberations are being had. So, look, there is a lot of frustration around here right now because we know that the American people are suffering. They're struggling right now. Paychecks are being withheld, services are not being provided. I mean, real harm to real people because Chuck Schumer and the Democrats in the Senate are playing a game. I am very hopeful, Jake, that at least 5 Senate Democrats will come to their senses and do the right thing. We must have 60 votes to break the impasse in the Senate. We sent over a totally clean CR, and I can't emphasize this enough. We did not put any Republican partisan priorities on that bill when we sent it over from the House. It's exactly what Chuck Schumer voted on last March, and it's the exact same thing they've done their entire careers and gave impassioned speeches that we should do because they said, and Chuck Schumer said himself as recently as March of this year, it would be terribly irresponsible and dangerous to shut the government down because of all the people who are harmed in that process. I don't know what's happened except that politics has gotten in the way, and he's afraid that he's going to have a challenge from AOC or one of the other Marxist Democrats.
I really don't think they keep saying this. I think it has nothing to do with I don't think AOC's primary challenge of Chuck Schumer will be decided based upon whether or not Chuck Schumer engaged in this specific shutdown. I do think it might hurt him slightly if he didn't, but if she's going to succeed or not succeed, it would be irrespective to the outcome of this.
And then he's going to lose his Senate seat. That's the only way to explain his about-face.
So speaking of AOC...
Another way to explain his about-face would be the fact that the court decisions are deciding differently on Trump's cases now, and the idea of continuing to fund that check on power being a priority is no longer there. Also, they didn't really have anything. They didn't message on anything before the opportunity last time. Now they're messaging like crazy on healthcare. So they have something to stand on, where before it just seemed like a general list of demands to say, hey, stop doing what Trump does. That wasn't really going to get you anywhere. But concentrating on the most popular issue for Democrats, healthcare, I get you somewhere. It turned Bernie from rag to riches, man. He went from a nobody, 1% of the country knew him, to almost beating Hillary Clinton, an established political behemoth, with just like a percentage point difference in the vote total. Less than a percentage point difference.
Last night at CNN's town hall, she criticized you for closing down the House of Representatives during this period where negotiation is needed and the Senate's in session. Take a listen.
They need to pick up a phone, Caitlin. I've never seen people who hate working so much in my life. I mean, genuinely, they won't even pick up the phone. If I were Mike Johnson, you should be in that office negotiating with Hakeem Jeffries every damn day until we reopen this government. And any day that you don't do that is a failure.
Your response, sir?
Yeah, instead of doing publicity stunts like AOC likes to do, instead of making social media videos, Republicans are working. We have been working. Right now, they're in their districts doing very valuable work. In our press conference this morning, I highlighted some of the very important things they're doing right now. What are they doing? They're trying to help their constituents navigate through this crisis that has been created by Democrats like AOC. She voted on September 19th in the House to block the pay for troops, TSA agents, Border Patrol agents, air traffic controllers, to stop the services to nutrition supplemental programs to women, infants, and children.
Man, just listing it all, though. I mean, look, this defense by Mike Johnson has not shifted throughout the course of the shutdown. It's just continuing like the Democrats did it. Now defending against Marjorie Taylor Greene, saying she isn't privy to all conversations and that they would be willing to have a vote on ACA extensions at a later date, with no commitment to whether or not they would actually go through with the ACA extension. I mean, that's not going to be enough, I think, to move Democrats, especially right now if they continue to see those numbers where the Republicans are 17 in the hole over this. I mean, you could talk about like the firings, but it's not like Russ Vought or any of these people involved in Project 2025 or any of these people wanted to see these federal workers fired. They're going to stop pursuing that because the government reopened. If anything, I mean, there's more attention in a government shutdown possibly being able to be brought to it, as the whole country is kind of on fire alarm when a shutdown's on. Either way, like, I think the Democrats have less incentive to immediately end it than the Republicans, but neither one want to blink right now. Republicans don't want to incentivize this into the future. They don't want to look like they lost. Donald Trump's a generally stubborn person, and Democrats understand the polling situation right now. And this is one of the few points of leverage they're going to have up until the midterms. So this could be a defining moment leading into the midterms. And even if they fail on delivering healthcare ACA extensions, by making a big show about it, if those subsidies do get cut and then the premiums do skyrocket, hopefully their message will have communicated and people will remember they were the party that communicated that. Oh boy. Okay, I think it's time that we talk about some other foreign policy topics. I do.